I was still in disbelief as I stared at the invitation in my hand. 15 years had passed, and the woman who once shared my life, my home, my dreams, had been nothing but a distant memory for most of that time. But there it was, an invitation to a reunion. I hadn't spoken to her since the divorce, since the moment she left, thinking it was me, that I was the one to blame. She had never given me a chance to explain, to ask why she was leaving. It happened so quickly, and just as quickly, she was gone. We had been trying for a child for months. The yearning was there. She wanted a family, and I wanted to give her one. But I couldn't. I wasn't sure if it was me, or if it was her, but I never had the courage to confront her. The doctor's visits, the late-night talks, the tears we shared, they felt like a constant reminder that we were failing at something fundamental. Eventually, we stopped talking about it altogether. We just let the silence build between us, until it finally collapsed. It was at that moment she started pulling away. I could see it in the way she looked at me, the way her eyes seemed to gloss over during our conversations. She began spending more time away from home, and the little things that once made us a team, our small, shared moments, disappeared. Then, one evening, she walked in with that look on her face, the one that I would come to recognize forever. She was done. She accused me of being infertile, a word that crushed me, even if I didn't fully believe it. It wasn't just the accusation. It was the finality in her tone, the way she had made up her mind before I even had the chance to explain myself. She believed I couldn't give her a child, but what she didn't know was that I had been to the doctor, had my tests run, and everything came back normal. But I kept this to myself. I was too scared to say anything. What if it was true? What if I had become a failure in her eyes, someone who couldn't do the one thing she asked of me? So I let it go. I let her think it was me. I let her leave. The truth was, it wasn't me at all. But how could I confront her with it now? It felt like the damage had already been done, that a single moment of vulnerability would only make things worse. She left, and I couldn't stop her. I watched as she packed her bags, tears in her eyes, but coldness in her heart. She couldn't see it, couldn't see that I was suffering just as much. I was losing everything, and she was moving on. I spent weeks trying to pull myself together. I couldn't understand what happened, why things went wrong. Did she love me? Or was I just the closest person to her when things got hard? I didn't know, but what I did know was that I was left with a piece of myself that I couldn't find again. She took it with her when she walked out that door. Years passed, and I moved forward as best as I could. I started dating again, but nothing felt right. I kept thinking of her, of our life together, wondering what could have been if she had stayed. My heart was scarred, and no matter how many relationships I tried to build, nothing could fill the void left behind by her absence. I began to avoid the subject of children altogether, too scared of what it might reveal about me. The word infertile haunted me, and I couldn't shake it. Meanwhile, she, my ex-wife, moved on. I heard rumors that she remarried, had children of her own, the family she had always wanted. But I never reached out, never tried to see what her life had become. She had made her choice, and so had I. We were both moving forward in different directions, and I wasn't sure if we would ever cross paths again. And honestly, I didn't know if I wanted to. The wounds were still too fresh, the memories of her leaving still too painful. Time passed, and I thought I had come to terms with everything. But when I received that invitation, it all came rushing back. The pain, the regret, the what-ifs, it was all still there. I didn't know what to expect when I saw her again, but one thing was clear. Our past wasn't finished yet. It had been a long time, but sometimes, time doesn't heal anything. It just buries the hurt deeper, making it harder to face when it resurfaces. And now I was going to have to face it. The years after she left were a blur. At first, I couldn't do anything but replay that night over and over in my head. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, her words echoing in my mind. "You're infertile. I can't stay with someone who can't give me what I want." I didn't even try to stop her when she packed her things. What could I have said? She'd already made up her mind. In those first months, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I wasn't just a man without a wife. I was a man without the one thing that made me feel like I had a purpose. the thing that defined me. The doctors had told me, in the coldest of terms, that I wasn't the problem. Everything checked out. But how could I tell her that after all the damage had already been done? I was never brave enough to confront her with it. I thought, maybe I wasn't enough for her. Maybe she was right. It wasn't until later, after countless sleepless nights, that I realized how deeply I had internalized her accusations. Eventually, I forced myself to move on. It wasn't easy. How could it be? My life had been shattered, and I was left to pick up the pieces. I started dating again, but each time, it felt like I was just going through the motions. No one ever measured up. I was afraid to open up to anyone, afraid to let someone close because of what had happened. The worst part was, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Even years after the divorce, she still haunted my thoughts. I would see something that reminded me of her, an old song, a restaurant we used to go to, and I would spiral back into that place of regret and sadness. My new relationships were doomed from the start. I wasn't capable of being the man they wanted me to be because I was still tied to the past. I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't explain the ghost that still lingered in the back of my mind. So, I kept things light, superficial.
It was easier that way.
Easier to pretend everything was fine. But it wasn't. Meanwhile, she moved on. I heard the rumors, saw pictures on social media. She had remarried. She had children. The life I had always wanted to give her, she had found with someone else. It stung at first, but over time, it started to feel like it didn't matter. It wasn't my life anymore. We weren't together. She had her family, her happiness, and I had to accept that. And then there were the nights when I wondered if I could ever truly forgive her for what she did. She had left me without a word of explanation, without so much as a conversation about what we had gone through together. She didn't even know the truth about my infertility. She left believing it was me, when in reality, she had been the one unable to have children. I don't know if I'll ever know if that's what truly drove her away. Maybe she was just tired of waiting for something that was never going to happen. But part of me resented her for not giving me the chance to explain, for assuming that I was the reason everything fell apart. The years taught me a lot about myself. I stopped being angry, or at least I thought I did. I accepted what had happened, tried to make peace with it. I even started to think that maybe we were never meant to be. Maybe it was fate's way of telling me, gee. It was an ordinary afternoon, and I hadn't expected to run into her. But there she was, standing across the room at a mutual friend's event. The years hadn't been kind to her in some ways, but she still carried herself with the same grace, the same confident air that once captivated me. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, time stood still. I didn't know how to react. She hadn't changed much, but I had. A lot. The man she had walked away from was no longer the same person. I had rebuilt myself, or at least I thought I had. But seeing her there, just standing there, felt like an avalanche of emotions crashing over me. For a split second, I almost convinced myself that I could walk away, pretend like I hadn't seen her. But I couldn't. Something about this moment, about her being here after all these years, pulled me in. I had to know what happened, what had become of her, what had changed. So, I walked toward her, feeling the weight of the past settle between us before either of us had spoken a word. When she saw me, her eyes widened for a moment before she quickly masked it with a polite smile. It was forced, and I knew it. I could see the nervousness in her, the tremble in her hand when she reached out to shake mine. I couldn't help but notice the faint tremble in her voice when she spoke. It was like she was scared, but why? She was the one who left, wasn't she? She was the one who made the choice to walk away, without a second thought. So why did she look like she had seen a ghost? "How are you?" she asked, her voice shaking just enough for me to catch. It wasn't the same confident tone I remembered. There was something beneath it now, something uncertain, something regretful. I could feel the anger rising within me, but I forced it down. What good would it do now? After all these years, after everything that had happened, what did I expect from her? An apology? An explanation? None of it would bring back what we lost. None of it would change the fact that she had walked away without even trying to fight for us. I couldn't be angry at her anymore. But I was angry. angry at the fact that she still had the power to affect me, that after all this time, I still cared. I could see that she wanted to say something more, to explain, but her words faltered as soon as she opened her mouth. I could tell she didn't know where to start. I didn't know what I wanted from this conversation either. Closure? Forgiveness? To finally hear the truth of why she left? Maybe it was all of that, or maybe it was just the need to finally see her face, to hear her voice, to confront the past we never resolved. I never thought I'd see you again, I finally said, my voice steady, but filled with something I couldn't name. She flinched slightly, but I didn't know if it was from guilt or surprise. The silence stretched between us before she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know how to face you. Not after everything. After what I did. She trailed off, her eyes darting away, unable to meet mine. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't know what I was supposed to say. Should I apologize for the way things ended? Should I ask why she had done it, why she left without so much as a conversation? Or should I just let it go? Let it be in the past, where it belonged. But it was hard. The hurt was still there, buried beneath the surface, and seeing her again, it opened old wounds. She wasn't the same person she had been. Neither was I. But the history, the shared years together, the memories, we couldn't just erase that. You left, I said quietly, the words coming out before I could stop them. You left without a word. Without even giving me the chance to explain. You thought it was me, but it wasn't. I wasn't infertile. I never was. Her eyes widened, and I saw the flicker of shock in them before she quickly masked it again. She looked away, and I could feel her guilt radiating. She had no idea what I had been through, what I had endured all these years. I didn't want to make her feel worse, but I couldn't help myself. I never knew, she finally said, her voice small, almost too soft to hear. I thought it was you. I thought it was something you couldn't give me. But I was wrong. I never should have left. I should have trusted you more. I'm sorry. The apology felt hollow. It didn't undo the years of pain, the years of silence. But it was something. Maybe it wasn't too late for us to talk, to understand each other. Maybe we could heal. But I wasn't sure I wanted that anymore. Too much time had passed, too many things had changed. I looked at her one last time, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I had once loved, the woman who had meant everything to me. But that woman was gone, and in her place stood someone I didn't quite recognize, someone who had hurt me in ways I couldn't easily forget. We've both changed, I said, my voice calm but firm. I've changed, and so have you. And I don't know if there's anything left for us to fix. She nodded, her face a mixture of regret and sorrow, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. But I couldn't ignore the years that had passed, the pain that still lingered. Some wounds don't heal. And sometimes, even when the person who caused them apologizes, it's too late to make things right. I'm sorry, she whispered again, and I felt the weight of it settle in the air between us. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. We stood there in silence for a long moment, the words hanging between us like a heavy fog. I could see the weight of her regret, the guilt that she carried all these years. But it wasn't enough. It couldn't be. The past, no matter how many apologies or explanations were given, would always be there, lingering in the background.
She had left.
She had made a choice, and I had lived with the consequences of that choice every single day since. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The memories that flooded my mind, of happier times, of a life we once dreamed of together, felt distant now. So much time had passed, and we had both lived lives apart from each other, built different worlds. I had no idea what her life had truly been like, but from what she had said, from the remorse in her eyes, I knew it wasn't easy for her either. I had to admit, though, that I had moved on, or at least I thought I had. Seeing her again, hearing her voice, it forced me to confront everything I had buried. The hurt, the confusion, and the bitterness that I'd convinced myself was gone all came rushing back. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, my voice quieter than I intended. What you did,
It left a scar on me.
I'm not sure I'll ever fully heal from that. It was true. The wound she had created when she walked out, believing that I was the reason we couldn't have children, had never fully healed. No matter how much I tried to move forward, no matter how many years had passed, I couldn't escape that. And now, standing in front of her again, I realized that the closure I had hoped for had never come. She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. She reached out, as if she wanted to touch my arm, to comfort me, but I stepped back. I didn't want her pity. I didn't need her to feel sorry for me. I had spent too many years trying to figure out how to live with the pain, how to live with the question of what if. And now that she was here, apologizing, it didn't fix anything. It didn't change the reality that we had both moved on, that we had both gone on.